Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Alberta News and Views. Today is just incredible. The federal health minister, Mark Holland, is having a press conference and answering questions, well, trying to, and he is commenting about the release of the Winnipeg lab documents. Is just incredible. This is just a firing squad. So we're going to watch the second half of it. It's going to take a little time because there are so many questions, so many obvious questions with obvious answers, but he is just tiptoeing around everything. It really is just incredible. So to backtrack a tiny bit, so for those of you that don't know, in 2019, there were 2 Chinese-linked microbiologists that were abruptly fired from like a top-tier level 4 security biolab in Winnipeg, just up and disappeared. And nobody knew why or what happened. There was a complete failure of security at the highest level. This was so crazy that it might be why Justin Trudeau called an election was just because of this reason alone. And it was heavily suppressed because it is so embarrassing for Canada that there were these microbiologists in this lab. And what they did, the most embarrassing part, is they sent samples, 24 vials of Ebola virus and 6 vials of Henipa viruses. I hope I'm saying that right. Both deadly pathogens sent to the Wuhan lab in 2019. Now, I'll let you connect the dots and come to your own conclusions with that. Also, these scientists also collaborated with Chen Wei, a major general in the People's Liberation Army and the leading bioweapons expert in China. So I'm going to leave that with you as well, and you can draw your own conclusions. As we listen to Mark Holland not having the obvious answers. They were spies. Why is it so hard to say that? Listen to this.
Have copies of the documents with those redactions removed, and I'm prepared to take your questions.
Why were those scientists fired?
So I think I'm not going to get into sort of the operational aspects. What I will, well, because I both wasn't there.
The government has hid for years, taken the House to court over, overly redacted over, and is now doing less redactions because they were called out.
So I disagree.
Can you please just answer the question?
So first of all, I disagree. I would say that in respect to the administration of any element of government, it's extremely important for the government not to be involved in making decisions of the administration of the public service. So it would be totally inappropriate for me to tell the public service who to hire, who to fire, or even why. We have an oversight responsibility to ask questions and to provide overall goals and objectives, and that's what was done in this case. So
why were they fired then? Why were they fired?
So the decision was made by the Public Health Agency of Canada that the individuals in question, that their behavior warranted them being fired.
What was their behavior? What was their behavior?
Well, look, I think that it became clear that they weren't disclosing information, they weren't disclosing relationships, that the nature of other work that they were conducting wasn't being disclosed.
Which was what? Working with China?
Well, I would lead you to the documents.
We don't have the documents.
Well, it's unbelievable.
Say in the documents why they were fired and what the concerns were.
Yes.
So it is going to be clear in this information.
It's explicit in the documents.
Okay, can you tell
well,
us?
I'm not here to give you a blow by blow.
In about 2 to 3 hours, you're speaking
Well, they're
to us.
available right now.
Well,
so first of all,
copy.
you will be given an electronic copy, or if you want a
We
physical
have not
copy.
yet been. Can you please?
Sure. I mean, you know it. We don't have the documents. Just say it to us.
So first of all, okay, everybody just take a step back. I'll try to take a different approach, and perhaps this will satisfy.
Answer the question.
That the decisions that were made, and I have to make this distinction. The Public Health Agency of Canada operates at an arm's length and appropriately, and particularly when we're dealing with national security and when we're dealing with the security of labs or with employees and employee information. It is very clear when you read the documents that the employees in question were involved in a variety of different scientific enterprises that were not disclosed, information was not given, and that they had relationships that they didn't provide information about.
And what were those
And those relationships, the relationships that they had, included concerns that there may be connection to their involvement with China, as an example.
Are you concerned that China was interfering and trying to get information delicate information from Canada's National Microbiology Lab?
Well, I'm absolutely certain, and you will see it from the documents, that no sensitive information left the labs.
Trying to get it.
And what I also am certain of, and I wouldn't have been certain of this in 2019, and neither would the Public Health Agency of Canada, that the lengths to which China was willing to go and is willing to go in a contemporary context to influence science and obtain information is deeply disturbing. And yes, China is, by all evidence, trying to interfere in our domestic circumstance. The same could be said of Russia, and that the question of foreign interference now is a very real one, in a way that in 2019 it simply wasn't.
Well, the two Michaels were in jail. Let
me go to somebody who...
I don't know how he can stand there and say that, obviously covering for China, because we know it's a fact that they were taking information and pipelining it to China. That's what is redacted. They infiltrated this government big time. And that is the real story.
Maybe I can just ask something a little more general, and then I would like to hear my colleagues sort of press further. There's a lot of documents, I understand, that are being released right now. What sorts of things might Canadians see in them? Can you tell us, what are we going to learn new? We're going to learn about how the individuals were fired. We're going to learn about Chinese interference, or is there some other stuff? Can you give us some high level? What's new today?
At a high level, what you're going to see is two employees who were not disclosing. I mean, they were eminent scientists, people with very respected backgrounds and very respected scientific work, who were undertaking work that they were not disclosing. And we're not making public health agency work. This was work related to a number of different scientific endeavors.
The Chinese military?
Not working with the Chinese.
Why leave it vague?
Well, because I don't look. Because one of the things is, and I hope you appreciate this, is that there is a lot of very precise information in the documents, and I don't want to misrepresent it.
But you've read it, and we have it. And you're speaking to us before we have the opportunity to read it.
And I will return after you've had an opportunity to read it for you to be able to ask direct and precise questions. I don't want to mischaracterize the nature of their work, right? I mean, we are talking about employees who were let go. This is human resources issues. We're into disclosing. Normally, we wouldn't do this. We wouldn't disclose the names of people. We wouldn't disclose the work. We wouldn't disclose the nature of why somebody was fired. I worked at Heart and Stroke, many times when people were let go. You're not able to talk about the reasons they're let go because of transparency. No, but that's the reason why. This is the reason. That's exactly why. No, first of all, so there's two different parts there. The reason why this is different is because of national security and the need for transparency, and that's why this is different, and that's why we're behaving differently.
So
but understand this.
Why did it take 4 years to get to this point?
In the principal point, because there was a process at the moment in which there was a dispute about releasing documentations. Remember that redactions are conducted by the public service, and it should not be interfered with politically. Parliament rightfully said that they wanted to see the documents, and then rightfully had questions about whether or not the unredacted documents should be made public.
I do,
yes.
I want to know about this. Are there now questions we're going to learn about the competency of the agency you now are in charge of, PHAC, that what's been unredacted is going to embarrass the heck out of how PHAC let barn doors open and everything.
I don't think. I think there was. I do think there was a lax adherence to security protocols. I think that there was an inadequate understanding of the threat of foreign interference. I believe that an earnest effort was made to adhere to those policies, but not with the rigor that was required. And I do not believe. I'm not going to sit here and say anything other than the Public Health Agency has in all instances comported itself in the utmost professionalism. And that unfortunately, that there were employees who were dishonest about some of their engagements. Those engagements at no time led to sensitive information leaving the country or to things that would elevate to the level of me saying that we should get into any sort of state other than saying in 2019 things should have been done better, and now are.
Can you tell us how many pages?
Sorry, I'm going to go here and then
You're talking about lax adherence. I mean, people let PRC nationals into the lab. Who authorized this?
Well, I think that, the question at the time was these were eminent scientists whose research and work was well known. They were leaders in their field, some of the brightest scientists that were known. And I think in 2019, the extent to which China was attempting to influence the scientific community or to interfere in domestic Canadian affairs was not known to the extent it was today.
They were already in prison at that time.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, how is it that the threat of China was not known?
Well, I think the dimension at that point in time wasn't around, are they trying to inject themselves into domestic processes and into our science? I think that and it wasn't that there weren't protocols in place. There were policies and protocols,
but they weren't followed.
But that's precisely the problem.
And
I
think
think
no one else being fired then.
Well, I think that and I would invite you to look at the documents. I have, and I can tell you that in my read of the documents, and I think back to 2019. That there was the lax adherence was concerning, but that it was on the aggregate, when you take a look at it, professionals who, yes, could have and should have done better, but I don't think it rises to the point of firing them.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, I got to pause it here for a sec. So the PRC is the People's Republic of China, right? And he is downplaying it, thinking he's playing stupid is what he is. And he's not saying anything because he wants other people to come to their own conclusions in case it's different than what the obvious conclusion is. They lied. Their other co-workers lied, and they were pipelining money. And for him to say that these scientists have just outstanding credentials and they are the top of their field, well, no shit. China's not going to send over just regular minions to do something as sensitive as this. This is unbelievable. The most corrupt, incompetent government in history is now just playing stupid, hoping that you don't realize what is exactly going on here. This truly is unbelievable and should be enough to destroy any government and call an election or for all of them to resign, because this is a top tier absolute fuck up on their part, 100%. Here we go.
Are you confident?
You don't think that hiring two scientists who have now been fired because they were possibly trying to sell Canadian secrets to China is too lax?
First of all, you're making a jump. You're jumping in logic that they tried to sell secrets to China. There's no evidence of that. That's the first point.
But did they
The
just
second
give the
point,
secrets to China?
no, there's no evidence of that either. The second point is that I am not. What I am saying is that before again, I would invite you to read the documents. But that if we're in a circumstance and we're talking about the administration of the Public Health Agency of Canada, they engaged in hiring people who were eminent scientists, who were leaders in their field, who had outstanding reputations.
Who are also working with China.
No, there's the concern. The concern is the relationships that they had with Chinese science, Chinese businesses that they did not disclose and was not known to Public Health Agency.
Holy
at that
fuck!
Time. That is a material.
That material has been disclosed about any of the other employees.
Well, because I think that the rigor that at that moment in time, when you have a leading eminent scientist in the field of in the field of life sciences, who have extremely strong reputations and are well documented in North America in terms of the quality of their research and work, that in the past, thinking that such an individual would be lying about sharing information or doing something, wasn't the clear and it wasn't at that moment at the level of
high secure lab in the country.
No, absolutely,
and there were,
and that's why we had those policies.
With this naive assessment that everybody's just
No, I don't think it's. I don't think that's the case.
And that's okay. I don't understand how nobody else is being held accountable. You're saying this is PHAC's fault, and you're telling us that the people at PHAC who are now at ESDC and other places in government hold no accountability, have no punishment, have no consequences.
Look, at no time. What I'm saying is, and let's go back first, because I think it's important to ring fence what we're talking about. At no time did national secrets or did information that threatened the security of Canada leave or enter the lab. So I think that it's important to note that the security lapses that occurred, while unacceptable,
but did it threaten human health?
Last question.
Yeah, I think that the answer to my view is that we are facing an emergent threat, not only in China, but in Russia, where foreign actors are willing to do things and cross boundaries that we previously would not have imagined. And I think knowing that now versus 2019 certainly changes the dynamic. And I would point out that it was actually me as House Leader who said we need a process to show these documents so that the full story can be understood.
Let
me take the last question because I have to vote.
They did not disclose some of their enterprises. Can you just qualify what those enterprises were? What kind of work did they not disclose?
Well, I'll leave you. Let's return to that question after you've read the documents. I don't want to mischaracterize it. There's a lot of information there, and I don't want to be in a position where I mischaracterize.
Minister, you know about
okay.
Why did you cover this
well,
up
okay,
for
I'll
4
take
years?
this as the last one because I don't. There's absolutely.
It's 4 years.
So first of all,
my colleagues reported this 4 years ago.
Right.
Your government took the House of Commons to court to try and avoid releasing the documents that you've now been dragged kicking and screaming.
No, I first of all,
Why
I disagree.
is that?
I completely disagree with that
Doesn't
assessment.
matter. It's the truth.
Let's go back and understand that redactions, and then I'm sorry, then I really do have to vote. Redactions take place by the public service. It was done specifically by the Public Health Agency of Canada. Okay, well that's an interpretation, and you can take a look at that. I would agree with that interpretation. And what happened once there were questions is we said, let's try to find a process. It started, if you recall, with an offer for the NSICOP, the Committee of Parliamentarians, to look at it. That Parliament said that wasn't acceptable, and that's fair. Just 1 second. Parliament said it wasn't acceptable. But let me finish. Well, look, you can't know if you don't know my answer. You just hold on a second, please. So NSICOP said, and Parliament said, that the problem was if they found that there were redactions they didn't think should be there, that they wanted additional transparency, the challenge was that they had no way to get that. And so that's why I suggested the ad hoc process, so that we could have a process where those documents could be released. And unfortunately, that takes time, because when you're dealing with national security and the identity of employees, you don't just do a table drop,
So
with all due respect.
No one in the Health Minister's office vetted the redactions by PHAC of this highly sensitive, politically injurious issue for you.
What I'm saying
no,
is...
please answer the question.
I am answering.
Nobody in the Health Minister's office had any responsibility.
I'm sorry, I am answering the question. I am saying that redactions are not done, nor should they ever be interfered with by me as a minister. That redactions are done at an arm's length by the public service and by agencies. Parliament had a question. We started with NSICOP. That wasn't sufficient for the reasons that I explained. I created an ad hoc committee. That ad hoc committee rightfully did its work and released the documents that we have today. It's a success of that process. The reason it took time is because we're dealing with national security and the identity of employees who were terminated, which is incredibly sensitive information. Because it dealt with national security and out of the interest of transparency, most of those considerations were waived so that we could, in an unprecedented way, share that information. I apologize.
So you believe in ministerial responsibility?
It took that long because it's called a cover-up. This is a cover-up. That's all this is. It's unbelievable. There is no evidence. Well, why? Who did the investigation? Kate, the RCMP. Well, we know the RCMP is corrupt. We know this government is corrupt. So it's come down to the point of where there is no evidence. Just trust me. Well, can we see and actually look for evidence? No, you're not allowed to look for evidence, which is why they put a stoppage to it. It is unbelievable. This government. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of days with this once they dive into it and tear this thing apart. That's all I see is just one. It's just typical of this government up to their same old tricks. They'll create a committee. They'll create departments. They will create whatever they have to stack on filters, to pile things on top of it. So you just never know. Where are the scientists? Where are the scientists? Oh, we can't talk to them. Why not? Because they fled. That is why. That is not normal behavior from just some trusted employees of a top tier biolab facility. This is insane, and this government just makes me dumber by the second, having to listen to them and just gaslight everyone into oblivion. You know from watching this that you can draw your own conclusions. Anybody can draw their own conclusions when they just connect the dots with this stuff. And he is just flat out denying what we knew 4 years ago. And to talk like 2019 was so far away, that things were so different in 2019. Oh no, we had no idea that China was this invasive. Give me a break. Give me a break. Follow me on Substack and Spotify. Please, please share this and get this sucker out there. Like, share, and take care.